In 1963, a Turkish man knocked down a wall in his basement. What he found behind it didn't just change his life, it shattered every timeline archaeologists had constructed about when humans first built cities. Behind that wall was a tunnel, and that tunnel led to a hidden underground metropolis capable of housing 20,000 people. But here's what makes your skin crawl. This city was carved entirely from volcanic rock, descended 18 stories into the earth, and according to carbon dating, parts of it are older than Stonehenge, older than the Egyptian pyramids, older than written language itself. The discovery raised an impossible question that archaeologists still can't fully answer. Who built this, and what were they hiding from?
Today, I'm going to show you 3 historical discoveries that were deliberately erased, accidentally forgotten, or intentionally buried. And each one completely rewrites what we thought we knew about human capability, ancient technology, and the very foundations of civilization. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why some of the most important moments in history never made it into your textbooks. But before we get to the most disturbing one, we need to start with something that sounds absolutely impossible.
That Turkish man's name was Demir Dora, and the city he discovered was Derinkuyu, one of over 200 underground cities found beneath the Cappadocia region of Turkey. But Derinkuyu wasn't just impressive by ancient standards. It was engineered with a sophistication that baffles modern architects. Think about this for a second. Whoever built Derinkuyu didn't just dig holes in the ground. They created 18 distinct levels, carved ventilation shafts that still function today, designed rolling stone doors weighing up to 1,000 pounds that could only be operated from the inside, and built a complete infrastructure including livestock stables, wine cellars, schools, chapels, and communal rooms. The ventilation system alone required understanding airflow dynamics at a level that shouldn't have existed in the ancient world. Fresh air circulated through all 18 levels without mechanical pumps. Water wells descended hundreds of feet, unreachable by potential invaders above. Archaeological evidence suggests the city was continuously expanded and used from around the 8th century BCE through the Byzantine era. But the original construction? That's where things get weird. The deepest levels show tool marks and architectural techniques that predate any known civilization in the region. Some researchers believe the origins could stretch back 5,000 years or more into a period when humans supposedly hadn't developed the organizational structures, engineering knowledge, or motivation to build something this complex. So, what were they hiding from? The standard explanation is invasions. Persian armies, Arab raids, later Christian communities fleeing persecution. But that explanation falls apart when you examine the scale. Derinkuyu could house 20,000 people for months, possibly longer. The lower levels contained everything needed for extended survival, including a missionary school, suggesting inhabitants expected to live there, not just hide temporarily. And here's the disturbing part. They sealed it from within, not from attack, but by choice. And then, at some point, everyone left and the city was deliberately buried. No mass graves, no signs of catastrophic collapse, no historical records explaining why. Just an empty underground metropolis that someone wanted the world to forget. Wow! Now, you might think an entire city disappearing from history is rare, but what I'm about to tell you next makes Derinkuyu look like a footnote. Because what if I told you that one of the most sophisticated libraries in human history, containing over 500,000 scrolls representing the accumulated knowledge of dozens of civilizations, was deliberately destroyed, not once, but multiple times, and almost nobody today can tell you what was actually lost? The burning of the Library of Alexandria is taught as a tragedy, but what they don't teach you is what happened to the knowledge itself and who might have saved it. Everyone knows the story. Great library burns, knowledge lost forever, dark ages begin. Neat narrative. Completely wrong. The Library of Alexandria didn't burn in one dramatic fire. It died slowly, across centuries, through multiple destructions, political upheaval, budget cuts, and deliberate censorship. The famous fire during Julius Caesar's military campaign in 48 BCE, that destroyed warehouses near the docks containing maybe 40,000 scrolls. Important, but not the main library. The actual Great Library continued functioning for centuries afterward. What really killed it was something more insidious: the rise of competing philosophical and religious movements that viewed certain knowledge as dangerous. By the 3rd and 4th centuries CE, Christian Roman authorities were systematically removing texts they deemed heretical or pagan. Jewish mystical writings, Egyptian astronomical texts, Greek philosophical works questioning religious doctrine, mathematical treatises on subjects considered too advanced for public consumption, all targeted.
But here's the part that should make you question everything you've been taught. The knowledge didn't vanish. It scattered, and some of it survived in the most unexpected places. What? When the library declined, scholars fled east and south. Some went to Persia, where they were welcomed by the Sasanian Empire. Others traveled to India, to Alexandria's rival library in Pergamum, to monastic communities in Ethiopia and Armenia. A Jewish community in Yemen preserved copies of astronomical texts in a secret cave library that wasn't discovered until the 20th century. One text described a form of steam-powered engine. Another contained a detailed account of Eratosthenes' measurement of Earth's circumference in the 3rd century BCE, remarkably accurate at only 2% off of modern calculations. The ancients weren't primitive. They knew. And then that knowledge was deliberately suppressed or forgotten. Can you believe that? The question becomes, what else was lost? And more importantly, what else was saved and hidden, waiting to be rediscovered? It's almost painful to think about, isn't it? Entire bodies of knowledge, perhaps technologies or medical treatments that could have changed history, just erased because someone in power decided humanity wasn't ready, or because it threatened the wrong ideology. But at least with the library, we know it existed. We know what was lost, even if we can't recover it all. What's truly terrifying is when something enormous happens, something that shapes the world, and then everyone involved agrees to never speak of it again. How sad, huh? Which brings me to the final story, and honestly, this one kept me up at night when I first learned about it. Hear me out. April 10th, 1815. Mount Tambora in Indonesia explodes with a force 50 times greater than the atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima. It's the largest volcanic eruption in recorded human history. The explosion is heard 2,000 miles away. Entire islands vanish. Over 70,000 people die immediately. But that's not the forgotten part. Everyone knows about Krakatoa because it erupted in 1883 when global communications existed. Tambora happened decades earlier, and what followed was so catastrophic, so globally devastating that the world tried to bury the memory. No way! 100 million tons of sulfur dioxide shot into the stratosphere, creating a volcanic winter that lasted 3 years. The year 1816 became known as the year without a summer. In June, snow fell across New York and New England. Crops failed worldwide. In Europe, already weakened by the Napoleonic Wars, mass starvation followed. Food riots erupted. Governments collapsed. In Switzerland, desperate families were forced to eat cats, dogs, and moss scraped from trees. Incredible! The global death toll from the resulting famine and disease is estimated at over 100,000 people, possibly many more. That was terrible. A global pandemic of cholera originating in India, spreading along trade routes weakened by famine. It sparked the worst typhus epidemic in European history. In China, floods from disrupted weather patterns killed tens of thousands. The monsoon season failed across Asia. But here's what makes this forgotten history so disturbing. It fundamentally shaped the modern world, and almost nobody connects the dots. The agricultural collapse pushed millions to emigrate,
accelerating American westward expansion and fundamentally changing global demographics. The crop failures in Europe created the economic conditions that fueled revolutionary movements throughout the 1800s. The famines in Ireland set the stage for the later potato famine by weakening the population and creating dependence on single crops.
Okay, that's a lot to take. But listen to this. Recent climate research has shown something even more chilling. Tambora's climate effects contributed to the freezing of Arctic ice, which paradoxically accelerated European colonial exploitation of warmer regions. The eruption indirectly shaped colonial policy for decades. And yet, if you ask 100 people about major historical events from the 1800s, maybe 2 will mention Tambora. Why? Because acknowledging it means confronting an uncomfortable truth. Human civilization is far more fragile than we pretend. One geological event, beyond anyone's control, nearly collapsed global civilization. That's terrifying. So we collectively chose to forget.
Conclusion. So what do these 3 stories, an underground city, a destroyed library, and a volcanic winter, tell us about forgotten history? They reveal something profound about human nature. We don't just forget history accidentally. Sometimes we forget because remembering is too painful. Sometimes we forget because the truth threatens powerful institutions. And sometimes we forget because the implications are too frightening to confront. Derinkuyu shows us that ancient humans were far more capable than we give them credit for, which challenges our assumption that civilization progresses linearly. The Library of Alexandria reveals that knowledge doesn't die. It transforms, hides, and waits to be rediscovered by people brave enough to look. And Tambora reminds us that nature can reshape human civilization in an instant despite all our technology and progress. What do you think?
But here's the most important takeaway, and why I made this video. Forgotten history isn't really forgotten. It's waiting. Every year, new archaeological discoveries challenge what we thought we knew. Ancient texts get translated using modern technology. Climate records reveal patterns our ancestors witnessed but couldn't explain. The past keeps speaking if we're willing to listen. And now, you know. What makes me genuinely excited about living in this era is that we're in the middle of a renaissance of historical discovery. Ground-penetrating radar is finding lost cities beneath jungles. Satellite imagery is revealing ancient trade networks crossing continents. AI is deciphering languages dead for thousands of years. We're recovering more lost knowledge right now than at any point in human history. It's amazing. The question is, what will we do with it? Will we integrate these uncomfortable truths into how we understand ourselves? Or will we, like our ancestors, choose comfortable myths over challenging realities? Because here's the thing about forgotten history. It's only forgotten until someone decides to remember it. And once you start looking, you realize how much we've been missing. How many underground cities remain undiscovered? What knowledge still sits in untranslated texts or sealed archaeological sites? What events shaped our world but never made it into the official record? The past isn't dead. It's not even past. It's buried beneath our feet, hidden in archives, encoded in traditions we no longer understand, waiting for someone curious enough to dig deeper. Someone like you, who watched this entire video instead of scrolling away. That curiosity matters. That's how forgotten history gets remembered. If this made you see history differently, share it. These stories deserve to be told. And if you want more content diving into the mysteries hiding in plain sight, subscribe, because we're just getting started. The world is far stranger, far more complex, and far more incredible than the simplified version they teach in schools. Thanks for watching. Now, go forth and question everything you thought you knew.